The cameras flashed, the crowd froze, and just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, a highly public family was just fracturing under the weight of the law, and this dramatic, real-world headline hits the internet. A judge just took Kim Zolciak's kids away from her.
Yeah, that headline. It's the kind of tabloid clickbait that just, well, it instantly demands your attention.
Right, it completely paints this cinematic scene of Hollywood drama, like a mother abruptly losing her children in real time.
And when you see a headline engineered for that level of shock value, it feels, immediate, it feels permanent and just entirely scandalous.
Definitely.
It's designed to make you click, to make you judge, and to assume you know exactly what is happening behind the locked doors of this massive celebrity mansion.
But as you know, if you listen to us regularly, the reality of family law does not operate in splashy headlines or sudden, unexplained judicial decrees.
No, it really doesn't.
So welcome to Starscope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals.
That's right. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And today, our mission for this deep dive is to look past the clickbait. We want to use this chaotic situation as a real-time case study because a much more complex mechanism reveals itself when you dig into the documents.
Oh, absolutely. The documents are wild.
We are going to unpack the actual mechanics of Georgia custody law, examine what happens when massive financial debt collides with a family breakdown, and
This is the craziest part.
right, we'll explore the staggering reality of how one high-conflict separation can legally infect an entirely different $100 million divorce.
I still can't get over that part of the story.
It's insane. So if you're ready, let's unpack this.
Okay, so to understand how a judge ends up actually removing children from a mother's home, we have to start by, well, establishing the cold, hard legal framework of the jurisdiction they live in.
Because without understanding the specific rules of Georgia custody law, a judge's ruling just looks like, I don't know, arbitrary punishment.
Exactly. It looks like a judge is just throwing darts at a board, picking winners and losers.
But there's a very distinct structure here. Georgia legally separates custody into two very different buckets, which are legal custody and physical custody.
Right.
And to make sense of the legal jargon, it actually helps to look at this like running a business. Legal custody is, it's like being on the board of directors for your child's life.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, you are making the big picture, long-term policy decisions. In Georgia, that specifically covers 4 categories: religious upbringing, education, non-emergency medical care, and extracurricular activities.
And if we follow that corporate analogy, physical custody is the CEO role.
The day-to-day stuff.
Exactly. The CEO manages the daily operations and the ground-level logistics. This dictates the actual living schedule, which is laid out in a legally binding document called a parenting plan.
Right, the parenting plan is everything.
It is. And what is vital to understand here is that parents can share one of these buckets, but entirely lose the other.
Wait, oh yeah. Even if parents are granted joint legal custody, meaning they both sit on that board of directors, the state recognizes that disagreements are inevitable, especially in a messy divorce.
I mean, that makes sense. If they could agree, they probably wouldn't be in court.
Exactly. Because of that, Georgia courts assign specific tiebreaker authority.
So even if they share power on paper, one parent holds the trump card for specific categories.
Yes.
Like, one parent might get the final say on where the child goes to school, while the other gets the final say on, I don't know, whether the child gets braces.
Right. It's parsed out very specifically.
It seems wild to parse out a child's life like a line-item contract.
Yeah.
But the courts are operating under a very specific mandate when they make these designations, aren't they?
They are. They use what is called the best interest of the child standard, and that standard is far more rigid than people realize.
That's so. Well, under Georgia law, a judge has to weigh about 22 different, highly specific factors. They evaluate the emotional care each parent provides, the historical involvement of each parent, and, crucially, the willingness of each parent to encourage a healthy relationship with the other parent.
Oh, wow. So if you're bad-mouthing your ex, the judge notices.
100%. The court does not weigh what is convenient for the mother or the father's career. They weigh stability for the child. That is the entire ballgame.
Stability over convenience.
Always.
Oh.
In fact, to ensure that stability, custody orders are designed to last. To even request a change to a permanent order, a parent has to prove a material change in circumstances.
Because they don't want you coming back to court every Tuesday.
Exactly. The courts do not want parents rushing back to litigate every time someone is, 10 minutes late for a soccer game.
Okay, so applying those CEO versus board of directors rules to the headline that started this whole thing, how did Kim's estranged husband, Kroy Biermann, successfully strip her of physical custody? Because the court didn't just suddenly decide she was an unfit CEO out of nowhere, right?
Yep.
There was a temporary mediated agreement already in place.
Right. So in high conflict cases where parents are throwing vicious, very public allegations at each other, mediators step in to build safety nets into these temporary agreements.
Like a buffer.
Yeah, it is a way to de-escalate the environment while the permanent divorce is being litigated. In this specific instance, their agreement required both parents to attend a set number of therapy sessions.
Okay.
And this was not a suggestion, it was a direct court order.
But Kim didn't go.
She did not.
The sources say she spent 5 weeks traveling, working on 2 different reality TV shows, and completely missed those court-ordered sessions.
And Kroy immediately went on the offensive.
I mean, he didn't waste a second. He filed an enforcement motion asking the judge for sole custody and sole decision-making authority.
He swung for the fences.
He really did. He claimed Kim was neglecting the kids and was, quote, more selfishly concerned with her own image. And the senior judge ruled in Kroy's favor. He was granted temporary physical custody and the final tiebreaker authority over education, medical, and religious decisions.
Which is huge.
Massive. And Kim was given a deadline, April 13th, to complete 4 therapy sessions just to get her basic weekend visitation rights back.
Now, if you stop reading there, it sounds like Kroy secured a massive permanent victory and Kim lost her kids because she went to work.
Right, and I do have to push back on the judge's logic here, though. Why is she being penalized and losing custody just for working?
Right.
She was filming TV shows to support a family that is famously drowning in debt. It feels like an incredibly harsh, almost punitive reaction from the court against a working mother who is just trying to earn a living while her ex-husband stays home.
I get why it looks that way. I really do.
Yeah.
But that tension is exactly why we have to distinguish between modifying permanent custody and enforcing a temporary court order.
Okay, explain that.
The judge did not rewrite the permanent custody plan because Kim was a working mother. The court system does not penalize parents for having jobs.
Right.
What the judge did was use a temporary change in physical custody as a lever to force Kim to comply with a direct order.
Oh, so it wasn't about the job at all.
Yeah.
It was about her treating the therapy requirement like it was optional.
Exactly. Let's look at the mechanics of Kroy's legal maneuver.
Mm-hmm.
His lawyer filed an enforcement motion, commonly known as a contempt motion, because Kim violated the order to attend therapy.
Okay.
But Kroy's team overreached. They embedded a request for permanent sole custody inside that contempt motion.
Oh, sneaky.
Very. And judges generally despise this tactic. Contempt motions exist solely to force compliance, or perhaps award attorney's fees as a penalty for wasting the court's time.
They aren't meant to change the whole custody arrangement.
Right. They're not meant to be backdoor channels to permanently modify custody without proving that material change in circumstances we talked about earlier.
So it is essentially a legal shortcut. Kroy tried to use her missed therapy appointments to permanently rewrite the board of directors and CEO structure.
Yes, and the judge saw right through it. The judge temporarily restricted her access to the children to compel her to complete those 4 sessions.
Which is 4 sessions.
Right. It is the legal equivalent of suspending your driver's license for unpaid parking tickets. The state isn't saying you permanently forgot how to drive. They are removing your privileges until you pay the fine.
Ah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, when she completed the sessions, the previous shared custody plan would resume. High-conflict couples frequently attempt to weaponize these contempt motions to score temporary wins and control the media narrative, but the court's underlying goal remains compliance, not permanent punishment.
Wow. And if you are loving these Hollywood twists and legal reality behind them, make sure you are subscribed because we have got even crazier stories ahead in this very deep dive.
Seriously, you don't want to miss what comes next.
Because even if she completes those therapy sessions and gets her weekend visitation back, she is returning to a home environment that completely fails that best interest of the child's stability test.
Oh, absolutely fails it.
Because this custody battle over therapy and visitation isn't happening in a vacuum. It is happening inside a mansion that is practically buckling under the weight of massive toxic debt.
The debt is staggering.
And you cannot truly grasp the severity of this custody dispute without understanding the financial collapse occurring under the exact same roof.
The financial reality of this case obliterates any illusion of a stable home environment.
Yeah.
I mean, when a family is hemorrhaging money at this terrifying rate,
Yeah.
every single interaction, every grocery bill, and every closed door becomes a battlefield.
We are talking about a true financial pressure cooker. Let's look at the numbers. They owed the IRS $1.8 million.
$1.8 million. Just let that sink in.
And that's not all. They owed the state of Georgia an additional $15,000. Their $6 million Alpharetta mansion was facing active foreclosure.
Which is terrifying.
They desperately tried to offload it, continually dropping the price until it finally sold for a massive loss at $2.75 million.
Less than half its value.
And even after the sale, they refused to leave. They had to be forcibly removed from the property by U.S. Marshals in April.
U.S. Marshals. Think about how a judge evaluates the best interest standard in that environment.
How do you?
You can't. How do you assess emotional care or home stability when federal marshals are showing up to evict the family?
You just don't have stability at that point.
Right. And leading up to that eviction, the court literally had to zone their house like a duplex just to prevent physical altercations.
Yeah, this part blew my mind. A judge had to step in and order Kim to live in the basement nanny suite while Kroy was ordered to stay in the primary bedroom.
In the same house?
In the same house. They were legally barred from entering each other's spaces. But even drawing those invisible lines didn't work. The police body cam footage from this period is staggering.
It's so hard to watch.
Law enforcement was repeatedly called to the house for domestic disturbances. Kim accused Kroy of locking her out of rooms, of stealing her luxury handbags and jewelry to sell for cash, and, get this, of setting up cameras to spy on her in her own closet.
When you introduce that level of paranoia, which is fueled by absolute financial desperation, the legal system just becomes another weapon for the parents to inflict pain on each other.
It stops being about the kids.
Completely. The disputes stop being about the children and become entirely about survival and retaliation.
And the retaliatory legal filings just kept escalating in severity. Like, Kim petitioned the court to force Kroy to undergo testing for CTE.
Chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Yes. She cited his 8-year career in the NFL and claimed he was having terrifying, profanity-laced outbursts.
Which is a huge allegation.
It is. She wasn't just throwing an insult. She wanted a medical professional to evaluate his brain to legally prove he was unfit to parent. But honestly, the most heartbreaking part of this entire financial ruin is the collateral damage to the children who are trapped inside this duplex of hostility.
The children always absorb the shockwaves. They are the ones who suffer the consequences of the adults' scorched earth tactics.
Yeah, their 23-year-old daughter, Ariana, went on reality television and a podcast to speak out about what was happening behind the scenes.
And what she said was shocking.
It was. She claimed that she had been making astronomical amounts of money from brand deals since she was 14 years old.
14.
But she recently discovered that all of that money, her entire childhood earnings, was allegedly drained by her parents just to pay the family's bills.
Her own money.
Her trust fund essentially vaporized to keep the lights on and maintain the illusion of wealth.
It is a devastating dynamic.
Yeah.
If we examine the psychology of high-conflict divorce, financial desperation acts as an accelerant.
A total accelerant.
When literal survival is on the line, when millions of dollars in IRS debt are hanging over your head, and when you are allegedly draining your own child's earnings just to maintain a facade, amicable co-parenting is a physical impossibility.
You can't co-parent when you're fighting for scrap.
No. The court's demand for a healthy, stable environment cannot be met because the home itself has become a war zone.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the final and arguably most bizarre chapter of this deep dive.
Oh, here we go.
And later in the show, you are going to see how one petty phone call turns into a legal nightmare because the financial desperation and the toxic jealousy don't just stay contained within their foreclosed mansion.
I did not.
They somehow pull Kim into an entirely separate, massive legal battle.
We were looking at a phenomenon you could call cross-divorce contamination.
I love that term.
It is a fascinating, almost unbelievable study in how the expansive nature of family law allows one person's chaotic separation to legally infect the proceedings of complete strangers.
Okay, here's how the contamination happens. Kim eventually moves out of the basement and begins dating a new man, Kyle Moitz.
Right.
Now, Kyle happens to be a billionaire, and he is simultaneously going through his own highly contentious $100 million divorce with his estranged wife, Jillian.
So we have a collision of two very high net worth, extraordinarily high conflict separations happening at the exact same time.
Exactly. One day, Jillian serves Kim with a subpoena.
Wow.
And she does it in the most dramatic way possible right outside Kim's child's school.
At the school.
Yes, and this subpoena is incredibly invasive. It demands all of Kim's private communications with Kyle, all of their shared travel itineraries, and receipts of any financial gifts Kyle has given her.
It's a massive dragnet.
But the shocking twist here is the mechanism that allowed this subpoena to happen.
This is the part that gets me.
Jillian didn't just blindly guess that Kim was spending Kyle's money. Jillian issued the subpoena because Kroy reached out to her.
Kroy called her.
Kroy called his ex-wife's new boyfriend's ex-wife to warn her about Kim.
He can't make this up.
He told Jillian that Kim is a narcissist with a gambling problem who is going to drain Kyle's wealth. And his definitive proof for this claim,
What was it?
he cited Instacart grocery charges that Kim had allegedly put on Kyle's credit card.
Groceries.
Yes, it is a masterclass in petty, spiteful litigation tactics.
It is petty, but the crazy thing is, the legal architecture behind it is completely sound.
See, that is the part that genuinely baffles me. How is it legal for a jealous ex-husband to weaponize someone else's divorce just to harass his former partner?
I know, it sounds insane.
Can you really issue a subpoena to a new girlfriend demanding to read all of her private text messages and audit her receipts just because her ex-husband called you up and gossiped about who paid for the groceries?
It sounds like an absurd overreach, I give you that.
Mm-hmm.
But in the realm of high-asset family law, yes, you absolutely can.
That is terrifying.
To understand why, we have to look at how broad and invasive the discovery process is in a high-net-worth divorce.
Okay, lay it on me.
Discovery is essentially a financial dragnet. In a $100 million separation, Jillian has a fiduciary right, and her lawyers have an ethical and legal obligation to track exactly where every single penny of the marital assets is going.
Right, because it's $100 million.
Exactly. If her estranged husband, Kyle, is spending shared marital funds on a new girlfriend, those funds have been dissipated from the marital estate.
Wow.
Jillian is legally entitled to know about it, and more importantly, she is entitled to claw it back in the settlement.
Because until the ink is dry on their divorce, Kyle's money is technically still Jillian's money, too.
Exactly. And Kroy, by making that single phone call, provided Jillian's legal team with the golden ticket, which is reasonable suspicion.
Ah, so that's all they needed.
Right. By specifically mentioning the Instacart charges, Kroy established a concrete financial link between Kyle's assets and Kim.
That is so calculated.
It really is. He handed Jillian the probable cause she needed to legally justify dragging Kim into a completely separate legal nightmare.
Just to mess with her.
Yep. It demonstrates how incredibly far the blast radius of a toxic divorce can reach, legally compelling a third party to surrender their privacy based on a tip from a bitter ex.
It is a staggering sequence of events, and if you want to keep up with how all these Hollywood legal battles shake out, stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next.
Because it never stops.
It never does. I mean, we started this deep dive looking at a flashy tabloid headline about a judge taking kids away, and we ended up untangling a deeply complex web of IRS debt, U.S. Marshal evictions, CTE medical accusations, and billionaire cross-divorce subpoenas.
Like a movie script.
We have seen how the abstract textbook concepts of physical custody and tiebreaker authority crash headfirst into the harsh realities of financial ruin.
Right.
The courts demand stability, but when parents are at war, the law is merely used as another blunt instrument to inflict damage.
The legal system is designed to protect the vulnerable, but in high conflict cases, the process itself becomes the punishment.
So true.
And while the adults are busy utilizing discovery dragnets and contempt motions as weapons against each other, the ultimate price is paid by the people who have the least amount of power in the room.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over as we wrap up today.
Yeah, think about this.
We have spent this entire deep dive focused on the adults, their legal battles, their massive debts, their retaliatory subpoenas. But consider the children at the center of the storm.
The kids who had no say in any of this.
Exactly. Children who grew up completely on camera, existing inside the flashing light of reality television.
For their whole lives.
When your own childhood earnings from brand deals are allegedly drained by your parents to pay off their mounting debts, and your daily life is a highly public, traumatic, legal tug-of-war. What legal rights do the children of reality television actually have to their own privacy and their own finances once those cameras finally stop rolling?
It's a question the industry really needs to answer.
It really is. You've been listening to Starscope Report, where we uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.